happened before.
Oh, it says in broadcast now. So
I'm going to end it.
it shows that we're on. It shows that we're on.
Okay, let's try it. Hey everyone, it is Nikki and Jim, and we are keeping it real. Jim, why don't you go ahead and tell us what's going on today? Because we've got some exciting stuff happening.
Hey, today we have a special guest, Sandy Johnson, who's an appraiser. Last week we went over inspections, which is very important, but really the appraisal is kind of a very, very important one. It's for the banks, and everybody's trying to come up, or the appraiser's trying to come up with a fair market value so that the banks are comfortable, the buyers and the sellers are comfortable with the price that has been agreed on. So Sandy's going to be going over that in a minute, but we're going to have Carrie come on too from Fairway Mortgage, and she's going to go over the current interest rates. Welcome, Carrie.
Welcome, Carrie. How are you?
I'm great. How are both of you?
Good. I am trying really hard to find your thing.
It's been a technically challenging day. Yes, for sure.
It really has, but guess what? I succeeded.
Exactly.
It's taking a second, but it will be up here in just a minute.
No problem.
So, we've been kind of talking about the market, and it was kind of looking like it was getting a little bit better. The rates were seemed like they were kind of maybe at least holding or going down a little bit. And you're going to give us a little different story today.
Yes. Well, they're still holding tight. I would say they're down about 1.125% this week. Not huge. The average over the entire nation is 6.125, which is significantly higher than this time last year, which was more like 3.75.
Do you think we're ever going to get that low again, though, honestly?
It will take some time. I mean, the greatest prediction for the springtime is going to be back in the 5s.
Okay.
But definitely whenever an election year starts coming up, which, in the next couple of years, we're going to see that. And so you'll see rates go down, of course, for the election year.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
Yes. But there were some other great numbers that came out, and it has more to do with the housing prices and what they're starting to do. So there's a company called CoreLogic, and they come out with a home price index. They do it yearly, and they also do it monthly. So the annual report came out for 2022, and it showed an astounding 6.9% overall increase in home values. Yeah. There was 121 consecutive months of increase, which is unprecedented.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's a little chart that kind of shows that. I mean, it just kind of went crazy up.
It did. It did. In December and January, they did see a dip, about 0.3% for December, 0.2% for January. But really, the forecast overall is looking like a 3% range, which is great for people that invest in real estate. So that's more of the average. Like we said, 21, 22 unprecedented years for home prices.
Right.
So really, historically, right now, still a great time to buy. I mean, if rates are in the 6s, historically, that's fantastic.
Absolutely correct.
Home values have come down a little bit. That's still a great time to buy.
Always a good time to buy. Buying versus renting. I can give you a scenario all day on when the break-even point is for renting versus buying, because homes are always going to appreciate in value.
Yeah, good.
So I guess without further ado, let's announce our guest speaker today. So Sandy's been a certified residential appraiser for about 20 years, and she owns and operates the Olympic Appraisal Group, which is located and operates here in Kitsap County. She has an interest in real estate and construction, and she started her career in Tacoma in the year 2000 with Spectrum Real Estate. In 2003, she opened her own appraisal company, Olympic Appraisal Group Incorporated, and she has lived in Kitsap County since 1979 and currently lives with her husband and her youngest son in Paulsbo. And she is not only when she's not doing appraisals, she enjoys riding horses, remodeling houses, and spending time with her 5-year-old grandson. And I don't know how Sandy could have a 5-year-old grandson because she looks absolutely beautiful, but welcome, Sandy.
Years have been great to Sandy.
Well, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Well, we're really excited to have you here. So like Jim mentioned, we've been talking about home inspections, and then, that is something that the buyer's doing for their benefit. And then, then we are, once you get into the process and you get the home inspection completed, then you have we call them the mean old appraiser coming in.
The appraiser comes out.
Yeah, so they don't work, but they work for the lender. And so I think a lot of people get confused, like, oh, they're, help, and they're not. My understanding was, and has always been, is that they are really looking out for the lender's interest, because they want to make sure that what the lender's helping pay for it at their investment and that buyer is to make sure that they're getting a fair price and that it makes sense. So why don't you go ahead and say hi and tell us, maybe some of the things that you look for when you're doing an appraisal.
Okay. Well, most appraisals require a property visit, and number one, to make sure, the condition, quality of the home. Also, if somebody's just relying on public data such as county records or Zillow, that information may be inaccurate. So an on-site visit is always a good idea to get a true feeling of the home. So that's why we typically will visit the home, do a walkthrough on the inside, sometimes look in crawl spaces or attics, depending on types of loans and stuff like that. But really it is to verify information. That is what the site visit is for.
Okay. So I know that different loans have different types of requirements. So I know and I think the VA's kind of got a bad rap because, it's like they have to be very specific about what they're looking for. But mostly, I mean, if my understanding is correctly, a lot of it's just kind of basic safety and, hazardous kind of things and stuff like that. A lot of times you'll pick them out even in the home inspection, but on the appraisal side, you're also looking for those as well, right? And what kind of things would those be?
Correct. So with those government-backed loans, they have minimum property standards. And a good rule of thumb to kind of decide what might be called out on an appraisal is health, safety, and preservation. Okay. So some examples of health, obviously, is, any kind of mold or anything visible, leaking septic or something like that. Safety, handrails on stairs, and make sure there's no missing stairs, decks without railings, or I've seen in instances where there's a second floor exit, let's say a door or a sliding glass door, but there's no deck or anything out there. They just haven't got that far. So that's a safety thing that we look for. As far as smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, those all fall under safety. And preservation would be more towards, especially here in Washington with all the rain and the weather that we have, to make sure that there's a good coating of paint, that type of thing, to ensure that everything has a life expectancy of, what we typically would look for. Drainage can be part of that too. So.
Okay.
So Sandy, from a lending standpoint, I know when appraisals come back to us, some of the two main things that come back are not having earthquake straps on your water heater, mm-hmm. and not having the correct amount of carbon monoxide or fire alarms. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, most real estate agents, they know that's going to come up, so they try to prepare their clients. But sometimes you have a vacant home, and or just slip somebody's mind, because the home inspector does also call that stuff out. The earthquake straps on the hot water heaters, that's fairly new. It is a state requirement now, where it used to not be. So, but it's been going on for a couple of years. So I feel like it's, working itself out. Everybody's preparing for it. And it's not coming up as much as it used to.
Okay. And peeling paint, I know, is another big one, especially for VA loans, because,
mm-hmm.
especially if the home's older because of the lead-based paint concerns and stuff.
Yep. That would fall under 2 categories: safety and preservation.
Okay.
Health and preservation.
So I'm also in a group of brokers, and I know that, there's kind of we kind of chuckle sometimes because sometimes the appraisals, one appraiser will, they'll have an appraiser come out and like, oh my gosh, this person asked for this and this and this and this, and it's not it's not kind of the main things. Why would that happen? Do you know?
Well, so FHA
Specific here because it was kind of funny.
FHA has minimum property requirements, but there's also gray areas. So what they do is they rely on the individual appraiser to make that determination in those gray areas. So, for example, condition should be similar to other homes on the market. Well, we have different ranges of condition. We have average, better than that, good, completely remodeled. So if it is an average, in average condition, they expect us appraisers to kind of use our own judgment as to whether it's considered similar in condition as the other average homes.
So do you use price to the, that's what I was kind of wondering, because like I said, normally what you just said is totally, they'll look at the roof, they might look at the crawl space, they'll look, it depends on the type of loan, but definitely the water or the earthquake straps and the those kind of things. But this one was like the things that was just so, I was just so weird. It was just like, the caulking or something of the
cosmetic, more cosmetic.
Yeah. And so would that be because it was maybe a higher priced home and it wasn't falling within the price range, and then they were trying to get it up to that price range? Would that be maybe one of the considerations?
That could be because that appraiser's discretion was, this house is close to being in, fairly good condition compared to the majority of the sales in the area. So, does that typically come up? No, but it can happen. It is the appraiser's discretion because an appraisal is one person's estimate.
So let's talk about value then a little bit, if that's okay. So, obviously you're going out and you're doing the physical look at it. I know when I do like CMAs and stuff, I'm pulling up all the solds in the last 3 months and I'm trying to get them as similar to the property as I possibly can within that certain area. How do you do it? Because I know sometimes it's a little bit different. You guys, I've worked with another appraiser and he's, running numbers and figuring out square footage. And, I do that too a little bit, but he had a kind of different format that he used. How do you do yours?
Yeah. So that, I think what you're talking about is, maybe a home that's in an area of not a development where all the houses are kind of the same. It's, more in the outskirts and there's not a real defined marketing neighborhood or something where, houses range, are real similar. So we call that technique bracketing. So we would then find, because we're not going to find the exact same house, right? So we would find one that's older or newer if we can't find one the same age. Living area, one bigger, one smaller, try to get the same bedroom, bathroom count. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. So, if it only has 2 bathrooms, we try to at least have one other sale with 2 bathrooms. And then that way the salient features are bracketed. And through the adjustment process, that's how we come up with our estimate of value.
Okay. So,
hey, Sandy, sorry, Nikki.
No, go ahead.
I've got a question. This series is for buyers to help them through the whole buying process. So let me give you a hypothetical. I'm a buyer and we're excited about the house and we sign a purchase and sale agreement. We agree on the price and it's $500,000. But the appraisal comes in at $475,000. And so it's a low appraisal. A, do you ever have many of those? And B, if you do, where does the buyer go? What are his options?
Okay, so there is a process through the lender. It's called a reconsideration of value, where they all typically will have their own forms. So you contact the lender, find out what their reconsideration of value process is, fill it out. It's typically not looking for necessarily maybe errors on the report, but maybe a sale that the buyer or the buyer's agent felt like should have been used, was a comparable, and maybe could have brought the price up a little bit higher.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
And then, of
definitely what
course,
we've seen from a lending standpoint, is that if there is a reconsideration of value, we ask for additional comps that were not used on the appraisal report.
okay. And of course, the other options are go back and negotiate the price, or
Now,
the buyer.
In the
Go
purchase
ahead.
and sale agreement, there is the option for the seller to pay for an appraisal. But of course, that has to go through the lender, and the lender has to approve that. So, and Carrie probably would know more about whether or not the lender would take a second appraisal.
Generally, we just use the company that we work through, because we don't get to select the appraiser. We use a third-party company that assigns them. So we don't even know who the appraiser is going to be until we get the report back.
Yeah.
So most times, as far as the company that I work for, we use our own appraisal company for sure.
Yeah, so definitely the reconsideration of value is usually the first process.
Does it happen very often?
I would say probably not, especially if you use Olympic Appraisal Group. I'm just kidding.
That's good.
It does happen. It does happen. Again, you know, that appraisal is one person's estimate of value. So, you know, you could get another appraisal and it could come in just fine, but that appraiser might have found sales that they felt like were more comparable than the other appraiser used. So, you know, comparable selection is really based on appraiser discretion and what they feel is the best represented sales.
Okay. So there is avenues for the buyer too.
There is.
Yeah.
You know, if you
good.
can't get that seller to come down, you can always do the reconsideration of value.
Yeah, or come in with more cash.
Yeah, but we don't want to do that.
Right. I don't.
So on those reports, I know sometimes we get conditions back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to discuss what conditions are and how do those work?
You mean like the repair conditions?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So if for say we'll use the earthquake straps and the smoke detectors because we've already talked about that. So let's say the appraisal is conditioned on that. The nice part about having the appraisal done, and even though it's subject to, Carrie can take that appraisal and the loan all the way through underwriting and everything while the seller remedies these conditions. And then depending on what it is, sometimes the lender will just accept photographs of the carbon monoxide detectors or, you know, the earthquake straps from one of the realtors rather than having the appraiser go back out and do a reinspection. If it's a safety issue, the appraiser is going to have to go back out and re-inspect.
Absolutely. And that does create an additional fee as well, because you're using the appraiser's time. So most of the time it's $150 charge to go back out there. But like you said, we will accept if the real estate agent goes back in and takes photos of the installation of the carbon monoxide detectors, the smoke alarms, or the earthquake straps, and then we certify them so that the underwriter accepts those conditions.
So Carrie, I think I was and again, I think it was on the realtor topic. Sometimes like they'll take them, sometimes they won't. And the realtors kind of joke like, oh, this person would, but this person wouldn't or whatever. You know, I mean, as far as like taking pictures, I mean, you really do want to get like, you know, where you can see actually what it is that you're looking at in the area. And then like up close so you can see like it's new or whatever, right? It's just,
yes.
Because I know some people just go take a picture of that and it's like, it could be anything anywhere. And so it'd be really difficult. So
specific. Well, we actually had a deal, right, Nikki, that we needed to have more smoke detectors put in there. So we had to recertify those, and the pictures provided were great. They just need to be clear. And like you said, make sure that they're newly installed and we're good to go.
Yeah. Because it does save the buyers some money sometimes. So not to have to do that. Okay. Any other like horror stories? I mean, because I know when I started doing real estate a long time ago, I mean, I was always told as a broker, like, just kind of don't really talk to you guys because you don't want to give you any information. I've also been hearing recently that, like the appraisers don't mind if you kind of give them a packet, like these are the upgrades and, these are some of the comps that we used. What about you? Do you personally like to see those or not?
Absolutely. I always open the door for any information that the realtors want to provide.
Okay.
That's my job, is to gather the information. So if you have it readily available, I would love to have it.
Okay. And we'll go into that more when we do our sellers and what they can do to prepare and stuff like that. So maybe we can get you to come back again.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for either of our guests today? Jim?
Hey, Sandy, can I ask you just a specific question? There's all kinds of adjustments that you make, 3-bedroom to 2-bedroom and square footage and, accounting for all that. Let me give you just one. Say you were looking at a house and you couldn't find one. Say the subject house has a half acre. And then you're looking at a comp with an acre. Do you have a process, or maybe you could say, what's the process of adjusting for that? Say to a half acre to an acre.
Yeah. So it kind of depends. Now, is that in the same market area? Because if you're looking, if you've got to expand your search parameters to find something similar and you kind of go into another marketing area, that could be a little difficult.
Right.
If I'm dealing with land, I try to find it all within the same marketing area. So for example, Suquamish, let's say you had that site size in Suquamish. It's going to be hard to find something in Suquamish on an acre that sold within the last 90 days, probably. So you'd expand your search parameters out, which gets you in trouble because you go into Paulsbo and prices are higher, land is more expensive. You can kind of look at assessed value and say, hey, is it falling in line here, or did I just trip over into another market area?
Right.
So that's kind of tough when it comes to land. As
Very
far
good.
as bedrooms, in every market area, you've got 1 to typically 5 bedroom homes, and you kind of make the same adjustment no matter what market area you're in.
Right.
But
Very
land's
good.
a little bit different.
I'm sitting right now in Suquamish on an acre.
Yeah. Well, then next time when you sell your house, then I'll just
Right.
go to my comparable database because I'm going to need it.
Niki told me this one. We love it.
So
Hey,
what do
it's
you
been
think
so
about?
great.
Sorry, one more question. I just thought of something else. So
Yeah.
sometimes there's really super unique houses and there's no comps. How do you value, or even what about you have like maybe you're in a very basic neighborhood and you have somebody who has just invested a whole bunch of money in things that, maybe the next buyer doesn't like. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Well, again, using the bracketing. So if everything in that neighborhood is inferior, then I would leave that neighborhood to find something superior.
okay. All right.
And for those oddball houses, like, log homes or dome homes or something like that, we expand our search parameters out quite a bit to include at least one of those similar style homes, because not only do we have to determine a value, but we have to determine whether it's marketable. So do log homes sell here? Do dome homes sell here? That type of thing.
Great.
Very
All right.
good.
Thank you so much for coming on, Sandy. Carrie, it's always a pleasure.
Okay,
Sandy,
so
we might have to come back here for our next one when we do our sellers series. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Can't wait to do that side of it too, which is coming up soon. If you haven't subscribed to our channels, please do, because there's some really great information. And if you have questions, please ask, and we will see what we can do to get Sandy to help answer any of the ones for appraisals. And we've got Carrie, who our lender expertise, and Jim and I are always happy to answer. So thank you guys very much, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.